Amen. No reason to fear. Good holiday revival here for us tonight. How's everybody doing? My name is Reverend Mark Thompson. Matsamela Mapfumo. Honored to be here with all of you tonight for Mass for the People. Normally, there's another brother here doing this, a lot more articulate and erudite and better looking than I am. But we've given him the night off. It is the holiday season, and he's so very busy. I'm talking about our dear brother, Pastor Michael McBride. Giving him the night off. I'm standing in for him, and I hope that you don't mind. It's an honor to be here. Great to do this work with Livefree and the Black Church Pack and all of that. And this has been going on for those who are just joining us. This has been going on for some time. This very special broadcast called Masks for the People. For those who don't know, it's Mass for the People is a humanitarian campaign launched by Pastor Mike, the Faith in Action Live Free Project, and also comedian W. Kamau Bell, in response to the disproportionate impact COVID-19 is having on underserved minority communities to ensure people have access to life-saving personal protection equipment and preventative care. As a result, Mass for the People has been partnering with Dr. James Corbett and Intium Health to secure a supply chain of FDA-approved masks, hand sanitizer, and other PPE for existing and newly incarcerated individuals, essential workers, and the most vulnerable residents within communities of color. And back on April 13th, the founder of Twitter, CEO Jack Dorsey, donated $1 million. And we're continuing fundraising to bring more resources and awareness. The following communities will be provided access to PPP at Mass for the People: Atlanta, Birmingham, Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Miami, Milwaukee, Newark, New Orleans, New York, Oakland, Orlando, Sacramento, and St. Louis. We invite you to go to the website livefreeusa.org and faithinaction.org. Faith in Action believes in a society free of economic oppression, racism, and discrimination, in which every person lives in a safe and healthy environment, is respected and included, and has agency over the decisions that shape their lives. Organizing is the best way to address the spiritual and material crises facing our society. It is the best tool we have for standing up to the wealthy individuals and corporate interests profiting from racial and economic oppression and environmental destruction. And so Faith in Action is trying to create a new society based on equity, sustainability, and love. And we need to build, as we all know, a strong multiracial people-led organization and organizations. They're relentlessly pressed for social change. So I invite you to go to livefreeusa.org and faithinaction.org. Amen. All right. We are honored now to be joined by our very special guests. These two are really something else. I had them on my show, Make It Plain, just before the Thanksgiving holiday, to talk about COVID safety. Now, since then, we've got this Omicron thing out there. But these two, to me, are the COVID defense dream team. They are COVID safety superstars, and they make it a lot of fun too, and they make us laugh because they let us know what we need to do to be safe, get ourselves together, and maybe from time to time hold some other folk in check too, be it in the airport or in the shopping mall, in the store, and especially at home around the dinner table. Some of you probably would have done well this past Thanksgiving if you had heard them in advance, so they could have told you about some COVID protocol when folk want to come and touch the food, put their hands on the food. You don't want to do that. But we're happy to have with us. First, I'm going to introduce them both. First of all, we're honored to have with us Dr. Debra Furr-Holden an epidemiologist and classically trained public health professional with expertise in health disparities and health equity, drug and alcohol dependence epidemiology, psychiatric epidemiology, and prevention science. She works with local and national policymakers to improve data-driven decision-making across a broad range of health topics to mandate equity in all policies. And since the onset of this pandemic, her expertise led to government task force appointments to address public health needs during the crisis, including the Michigan Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Disparities, the Greater Flint Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Inequity, and New York City African American COVID-19 Task Force. In Michigan and in Flint, the racial disparity in COVID-19 cases and deaths among the African American population has been eliminated. We welcome the epidemiologist and associate dean for public health at Michigan State University College of Human Medicine, Dr. Debra Furr-Holden. Dr. Furr-Holden, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
And happy to have you here. Also with us, the other half of the dream team. She's a clinical nurse scientist and infection preventionist and on the faculty at Case Western Reserve University as a KL2 scholar and assistant professor in biomedical engineering. These sisters are heavy, aren't they? She completed her initial nursing training at Cleveland Clinic Huron School of Nursing and PhD and her PhD at Case Western Reserve University. For several years now, her work continues to focus on infection prevention self-management among patients, including technology-based interventions to improve patient hand hygiene, identification of harmful bacteria and viruses on patients' hands, and strategies for implementing infection prevention guidelines in different settings. During this pandemic, she has been instrumental in providing practical prevention tools and guidelines to community members, small businesses, community organizations, and public officials. Her practical tips have appeared in media, including Forbes and Self magazine. She has served in various leadership roles, including the National Research Committee for the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology, and is the chair for Infection Prevention Management Guidelines for the International Standards Organization. Please welcome Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Knighton, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Rev?
Just fine. Glad you both are here. These two are wonderful. You're really going to enjoy this. I've told everybody to tune in. I have to, full disclosure, I stole these two from Santita Jackson. I was on Santita Jackson's morning show on WCPT in Chicago as Reverend Jesse Jackson's daughter, and I was coming on after them. And they were going to go, and I was going to come on and talk. I said, don't take them off. Let me just come on and listen to them. I don't have nothing to say. We all need to finish listening to them because I learned so much. And I've never been a germaphobe, but they've kind of turned me into one a little bit. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I never was. I have relatives who are germaphobes, but I was never like that. But here we are. Now, also in full disclosure, we want to mention Dr. Furr-Holden. Even with all of the precautions we're going to talk about tonight, all the things you can do, folks, to make yourself safe, there still is no guarantee, right? Dr. Furr-Holden, you have, I guess, recently tested positive, correct?
I have, and I would be happy to share about that because I actually didn't quite honor all of the protocols and do many of the things that I encourage people to do. And I'm being transparent about that because my brother has an expression. He says, make sure you drink the same Kool-Aid you're serving. And so I didn't do that, and it went how it went. And I would be willing to share with people just so people understand this is real, and none of us are immune.
Yeah. How are you feeling? Any serious symptoms?
It's been a week now, and so the symptoms aren't that bad because I'm fully vaccinated. I haven't had a booster shot, but I did have 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. And so I have what they would consider to be a mild case. It was worse the first probably 3 or 4 days. And now I just got, stuffy nose and a little bit of a runny throat. The worst symptom I had actually was a headache and fatigue. Literally just standing up washing dishes, I would be dead tired. But that has mostly subsided now. Yeah.
And was this the first time you tested positive throughout the whole?
This is the first
Okay.
time I've tested positive.
And lastly, is there any way of knowing, I guess, in a situation like this where you've been tested and you're positive, can we know whether it's a variant or not? I mean, could we? Is there a way for us to find out whether or not Omicron might have, been around?
That's a great question. And so the short answer is yes. It's called genomic sequencing. So
Uh-huh.
in many states, they will take some sample of positive COVID tests and they will do genomic sequencing. And there's two types of sequencing you can do. You can do the kind of sequencing where you know exactly what you're looking for, and you do kind of like a very inexpensive version where you just look to see if those particular mutations exist on that virus. That will let you know it's Omicron or it's Delta. And then there's something called de novo sequencing where you just have to get the genomic sequence for the whole viral molecule, starting from scratch.
Okay.
And so I don't know what strain of COVID I have, but we are doing a big push in Michigan because we are in the midst of a surge to understand which variants seem to be spreading through our community. But be real clear, up until about 2 weeks ago, about 98% of all cases in the US were Delta.
Okay. With
Is the
Delta.
estimate. It's an estimate because we don't test everybody, but Delta is thought to be the predominant strain of COVID in the US right now.
Okay. All right. So, well, thank you for that, and you're in our prayers. I pray that you'll be. Well, I'm thankful you don't have any other serious symptoms, so we're thankful for that, and appreciate your honesty about not following your own instructions either.
Yeah. I went to a wedding, but watch this. I went to a wedding, Rev. I went to a wedding, and at the ceremony, it was all very cordial. It was all very proper. It was in a church. We were all spaced out at the church, and it's a big church, right? Big church. We were all spaced out. Everybody had on a mask. Then the 2 hours later was the reception. I walk into the reception hall, and what happens when you come in? Everybody has on their mask, and there's good decorum. And then comes the alcohol. And once the alcohol comes, what comes after the alcohol? The DJ. And what happens at a Black wedding when the DJ comes? The Cupid Shuffle. And like a moth to a flame, we all went to the dance floor with our drinks in hand. Some people already got their shoes now slung over their shoulder. Masks are gone. And like a moth to a flame, I got caught up in the moment too. And I jumped right out on that dance floor and I did the Cupid Shuffle like nobody was watching. I really did. Because I just had been out. And I went and I sat back at my table and I had a glass of wine and I chopped it up with the lady sitting next to me as if she was my sister and I know her whole life history. And I got COVID. And that's how that happened. Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Knighton, she wasn't doing Cuba Shuffle, she was doing the Corona Shuffle.
That's exactly it. COVID shuffle.
COVID. The COVID Shuffle. Lord have mercy. Well, let's pick it up there. We want to go through several categories tonight, and this will be somewhat chronological. The holidays are upon us. We're live. The doctors, when they were on my podcast, they challenged me to do something with them live. And folks, we're going to encourage you even to put some of your questions and comments, those of you watching on Facebook, in below the video in the comments as you're watching, and I'll monitor that and raise some of your questions. But if we look at it chronologically, it's the holidays. First thing many of us are going to think about doing is traveling. So let's start there. Dr. Knighton, I mean, that's something we know we're supposed to wear our masks, and the flight attendants are pretty adamant about that on the plane. But as you pointed out before, the safety issue, that's not the only place where it is. There's a lot that happens when you first cross that threshold of the airport, don't you?
Absolutely. So we need to be conscious about what we're doing from the time that we make it inside of the airport. So I'm not even going to go back in terms of driving in public transportation. But just even thinking about you going inside of the airport, let's say if you can have the ability to print up your ticket or to make sure that it's on your phone, have that before you go. It is important because you have to remember the kiosks. Everyone's using the kiosks. There's no one cleaning them in between. I can tell you we've done studies on them and they're dirty. They're very dirty. You may not be able to see germs. However, when we test, there are a lot of nasty little bugs that are floating around. And we know that that very screen we have to touch our hands with, right? So then we leave from there. We're now in line with TSA, and then we're going in. We have to provide our driver's license, which is plastic. And we all know that COVID lives on plastic. And you know that the TSA worker, you see that they have them gloves on. We have to remember that every person that came through there to provide their license and their ticket also touched the gloves of the person that is then touching your ID. So technically, what we do is we take that ID, we put hurry up and rush and put it back in something, you know, and whether it's in our purse, whether it's in our pocket, or some of us may even hold it with our hands right until we make it to the other side. And we're so trying to hurry up and rush, we don't even think about it. And I even too. So Dr. Deb, just because we talked about this recently, I think she should share her experience of going through TSA because she did exactly what I do when I go through TSA, but sometimes it's not always a pleasant experience. So Dr. Deb, I just want you to tell Reverend Mark and the audience about your experience of how you were trying to make sure that these people trying to check your ticket and your ID, how you were trying to practice safety and how that went for you.
Yeah, the woman who takes I'll just say the person who takes your ID said, you know, I need to see your ID. And I noticed she had on gloves, and I had been in the line and watched her manage, I don't know, maybe a dozen people before me. And I said, well, can I just hold it? And she said, no, I actually have to hold it. And I said, well, can you change your gloves? Because she didn't have the same gloves on for at least 12 people that I've seen. And she said, I'm not going to change my gloves. And I said, well, ma'am, you've interacted with all these people. Whatever's on your gloves, I don't want it on my ID. I said, no problem. Can you hand me a wipe? She handed me a wipe. I put the wipe around my ID and handed it to her and said, just touch the wipe. And then I had another wipe and wiped it off. It was crazy because I'm thinking she could actually expose me to COVID with what's on her gloves.
Yes.
And her goal was to protect us, but unbeknownst to her, she was actually creating excess risk. It would have been better for her to just have her bare hands and sanitize them in between each person.
Yeah. And that's something we take for granted. It's not regularly practiced at all. Folks, I also want to go back for a minute. Dr. Knighton was talking about that kiosk. We don't even think about that. We go and touch that kiosk, do the printout. So do the opposite of what the progressive commercial says when you try to act like your parents, printing out your ticket. Unless you can ideally, if you can't get it on your phone, print it out at home. All right, because a lot of us can get it on the smartphone. That's the best way to. But you don't want to. Nobody's wiping that kiosk off. Nobody.
No. And if anything, make sure that even afterwards, after you use it, you have your own hand sanitizer or hand cleaner there to be able to clean your hands before you move on to the next step. Because oftentimes, like, just think about it. You just left that kiosk, you have your phone in your hand. So I just want to walk someone through that says, I ain't listening to them people. I'm going to use the kiosk all I want to. So you got your phone in your hand, you getting ready to go to the kiosk. So you're doing everything with the kiosk. You grab your phone, you send in a text message, or you trying to pull up your ticket and you haven't cleaned your hands. And you then take your phone and you put it to your face like this. So now that you put it to your face like this, you've taken everything from the kiosk and you transferred it directly to your phone. And so it's the same exact thing with the conundrum of gloves. You know, as Dr. Deb mentioned, I just want people to know that gloves are not a protector. We use them in healthcare to prevent, let's say, the spread of bodily fluids, you know, to our hand, to be able to minimize the risk. And we still practice hand hygiene before and after we use the gloves. And I also want people to know that those gloves are not really a good protector. So all of the germs build up what's called a bioburden on the gloves. So, and that bioburden, you're then transferring it to your other properties. And I see it happen all the time where somebody will have the gloves on and they're doing their groceries, but then they actually put in their car back in their pocketbook. Well, you just took everything that you just took from the register, the cashier, off of the conveyor belt, out of the supply chain, because somebody had to put those items on the shelf, right? You're taking all of those germs now, and they're now on those gloves, and we don't think about that. But just even to Rev, moving through TSA, those baskets, they don't clean. Those bins that we have to put our items in, they don't clean the bins. And so I've seen, and I'm going to bring this up and reiterate it. I might not be able to act it out. But with those bins, you put your items inside of the bin and then you're going to stand in line. And then you exhausted. So you touching on your face, you touching on your cell phone, you're waiting and you're doing all of these things just to be able to go through and actually make it through security. But you don't want to make it through security already having been exposed to COVID. So just consciously think about the items that you touch that are not your own. Think about what your hands are touching, most importantly, because we don't think about that. I even see it where some people are touching those items and then they're touching their mask, trying to readjust their mask. Because we don't know that even prior to COVID, we touch our face like 2,000 times a day.
You know, I just thought about something too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you or Dr. Debra can do a something brief on phone sanitization. Because, I thought about it. When we get the boarding, now I was saying tickets, so it shows I'm just like the professional progressive commercial. I meant to say boarding pass. When it's on my phone and I'm going to TSA and I have to put the phone flat on that little mirror thing to read the boarding pass, everybody else's phone has been up all on their face, has been on there. So everything that's come off everybody else's face off their phone is now on my phone because I put the board. No.
It's our third hand. Our cell phones are our third hand, and we don't think about that. And if anyone was to Google it right now, cell phones are 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat. And so it's essential that we're at least cleaning them 1 to 2 times per day. I'm telling you, I want everyone to look it up because it really is dirtier than the toilet. And we don't think about that, but we do everything with the phone. We're text messaging on the phone. We're putting the phone up to our ear to be able to talk. Those germs have transferred then to our masks, right? So they transfer to our masks. They're on our hands. We just don't think about the things that our phones come in contact with. And so I remind people, try to clean your phone at least 1 to 2 times per day. Now, some of them have this coating, and it's like an OLED coating that goes over the screen. So it's an anti-scratch coating that goes on the screen. And so all products are not safe for your phone. I encourage you, because we're in the midst of COVID, whether it's Apple, whether it's, Android, you can go to their site and find out what are the best items to be able to clean your phone with. I don't want to give anyone any advice about that, depending on their phone. Just don't spray it down. Just don't soak it in some alcohol. Like, don't do anything to where you're spraying your phone. It would simply be a lightly damped disinfectant wipe or cloth that is approved for your phone to be able to clean your phone. But it's essential that that's done 1 to 2 times per hour, because I'm sure if I was to swab everyone's phone, they would be surprised by some of the stuff that's growing on there. They did it with purses, maybe about 5 years ago, and saw all of the stuff that was on the bottom of purses. Also saw all of the stuff that in grocery stores that is on that seat. And I'm saying the seat because it's where people sit their babies at, where we sit our produce at. And so a lot of times it's a lot of E. coli and just different things right there on that seat because somebody might have had a bad diaper. And it may have not been cleaned properly. And so just kind of putting it out there of things to think about. So we just have to remember that with our phones, like, it's essential that we are cleaning them like they need to be cleaned, and is a part of that whole process. And I know too, Rev, and I'm going to wrap it up about the travel because I know we've been talking about it for a minute. But just even when you're on a plane, there is no social distancing on the plane, and we know that. And some things just don't make sense. But this is where we are, and we still have to travel. And so I encourage individuals, of course, make sure that you're wearing your mask properly on the plane. But when it comes to the air at the top, I was telling Dr. Deb and Rev that I actually take the fan off of me and I push the air away from me. So the little dial at the top, is going in the opposite direction away from me. So that way, if my neighbor accidentally coughed, I at least have a little bit of protection for me to where that air is going to shift back in their direction, opposed
Yeah.
to coming directly on me. And so I always bring that up in terms of flights too. So those will be my major things in terms of travel. And I know that we're going to get into it, but testing. We have way too many testing resources now to make sure that we are getting tested when we are considering travel. Before you leave or before you get there, and then considering it right when you get back,
Right. Just
depending on the length of the trip.
y'all, she said the phone is dirtier than the toilet seat. Okay, that's yeah. I'm gonna have to meditate on that one. That's deep. And I'm sure. I know you're right. I know you're right.
I want
Okay.
you to look it up. Put phone. Look, just if you Google phone 10 times dirtier than the toilet seat, or if you put phone in toilet seat, it's gonna tell you what you need to see. But this is something we've known for some time now. It's just something that we don't think about, and a lot of us still are sitting our phones down on counters that people have also
Yeah.
interacted with. So
You know, my grandmother used to do, Dr. Deborah. Um, even at home in her own house, she would never put the phone on her face. No matter where she was, she just didn't believe in taking a phone and putting directly on her ear or right to, it touches us. She always spoke on the phone like this. That's just what she did. And I was saying, wonder why she does it. And I knew why, but I just was too trifling to copy off of. Okay.
But look, Rev, you have been knightened because just the thought that you are, I know, right? Black folks will take a noun and make it a verb. I found that out recently. That's what we do. We make nouns verbs. So you've been knightened because you have the consciousness now to think, if I put my phone on that scanner, everybody else's phone has been on that scanner. But can you just see how now your consciousness is elevated? Because the point is not to have people out here living in fear or being like legit germaphobes, but to be more conscious, to be more present, to have an awareness that then can help to shape their behaviors that you can internalize.
Yeah.
It's like you wouldn't walk up to a stranger and drink out of their drink, would you?
No.
But you would walk up to something that a stranger has used and basically share it with them. Whatever you got, I got. So you've been knightened. So this makes me feel good. It's heartwarming.
Well, thank you, and I want everybody to heed this because now there are a couple of germaphobes I know very well probably watching that serious clinical who are literally canceling their plane tickets right now for wherever they plan on going. Now, y'all don't have to do that. You just want to follow the protocols and precautions. They didn't even think about it. I'm not going to the airport. No, you don't have to do all that. But these are precautions we want you to take. You alluded to this, Dr. Knighton, as you are knightening us. Going to the grocery store. Yeah, we use the shopping cart, but overall, when we're going shopping, and that's what we do during this holiday season, we do plenty of that. Maybe more than we should, folks. Like I said, we need to be real careful because our money's going toward people going on outer space trips, and not for us. But give us some pointers, or give people some pointers on what happens when we do go shopping and what we need to be thinking about, what precautions we need to be taking, please.
So I will tell you, for me personally, if I am going inside of a line, and I know I can go back and talk about, just the items in itself. I am an anti-glover. I'm just going to bring it up because your hands have a flora, which is your normal flora, that is going to provide way more protection than your gloves if you take time to wash or sanitize your hands. I know some people wear gloves because of their hand, like their skin is sensitive, to materials that might not be available out in public. But I don't encourage the majority to wear gloves. When I go to the store, I'll be honest, I am looking for the cashier or the person at the counter, the customer service rep that does not have gloves on. And my children will tell you, I'm literally going through the store and I'm seeing who don't have gloves because I know it's easier for them to sanitize their hands in between. If you go to the grocery store and you notice that there's a line, because we know that the lines are going to be heavy, it's around the holiday season. I say try not to go during peak time. But if you have to go during peak time, just take note of what's happening with those gloves. Let's say everybody has on gloves and you can get around it. that person, without changing their gloves, has now accumulated bacteria from every customer that came through and every item that that person touched before they touched your items. And so I even, when I make it home, am conscious to just lightly wipe down my items, not necessarily with a disinfectant, because we know that, that's not safe on some food products. It's not safe on boxes. But I actually wipe stuff down because you never know who was touching those items before. The other piece of it is if you can set up a situation of where you're getting your items ordered ahead of time, and then you can pick them up for car delivery, or you can have them delivered to your home, then that's also a way to stay safe. You know that that person that brought in the bags touched it and the packer touched it, but it just means a decreased risk for you to touch those items. But if you don't have that luxury, because I do see a lot of things that are happening, we really are fortunate, some more than others, to be able to have, let's say, pick up groceries by putting the app in your phone and getting there, and being able to take advantage of that. But if you don't have that as a capability, it's important for you to make sure that you are wiping down items. I also was explaining that, let's say it's not a grocery store and we're talking about just being out shopping. Black Friday's gone, but let's just say we're out Christmas shopping. Is making sure that you are not hovering over somebody's head, or somebody is not hovering over your head. Is making sure you're not inside of closed in spaces without proper ventilation. So that is an absolute must. It's also thinking about the fact that, yes, the items that you have in your possession, someone may have put them back. So there are germs on there. And so if you can help not being on your cell phone when you're at the store and being distracted, then you can actually master some of the infection prevention practices in terms of the things you touch. Because something that we don't think about that goes across travel, it goes across everywhere that we may be, are the escalators and the elevators. We don't think about the fact that everyone is touching that very rail that we're walking down. And if you're not cleaning your hands by the time you make it to the bottom, you're touching everybody else's germs as well. So that would be my recommendations in regards to shopping.
Okay. Very important, folks. This is very important information. Now we get to the part where, and this is similar to what you were saying, Dr. Debra. You're at an event, it's a gathering, it's social. That's when people become the most lax, right? And so we're at the house, we're gathering with family, whoever's house. There's a lot of people, it's crowded. Very unlikely there's any social distancing. Food being passed, people talking all over the food. Talk to us about that, if you would, and what people are thinking about there. Y'all get ready now, because they hit me with something the other day we were talking about. I wasn't ready for. But talk us a bit about that, and even I think too, Dr. Debra and Dr. Knighton, we want to talk, Dr. Shanina, we want to talk about diet too, and what we want to eat, right?
Yeah, I have the luxury of having these rock stars around me. So when I contracted COVID, Dr. Knighton immediately started texting me, stay away from the sugar, don't do the bunch of fat, put some peroxide in your cool mist humidifier, get that going, get this. I said, wait, hold up. And literally about half of what she said, I already had going. And then the other half was easy for me to implement, elevate, and get right into place. So we just had Thanksgiving that just passed. And we sort of came up with something called the 4 Ps, just to try to help people, which is to prepare in advance and prepare your guests. Right? There's a lot that you can do. I always tell people you want to plan. You plan your work and then you work your plan. So have those conversations with your guests in advance. Don't wait until somebody shows up at your door with 2 of their friends to say, oh, I'm sorry, this is an invite only affair. People need to know that in advance. Some people have events and they say you got to be vaccinated to come, or I want you to have a negative COVID test, or they just want to have a conversation with you and know that you're being safe and all those things. My point is, don't spring anything on people. Have those conversations in advance and make sure that people are prepared. We are no shoes house. I let people know this is a no shoes house. Why? Because I don't want you to get over here and take your shoes off with your holy sock or your crusty socks, not knowing that that was coming. Do you know how many people have brought slippers with them? When I tell them it's a no shoes house, they say no problem, and they'll bring their slippers with them, and they'll come in and take their shoes off at the door and throw their slippers on. I'm okay with that as long as you are wearing house shoes. You can wear them in my house, but I don't bring the street into my house. Why? Because those same feet I step on my floor with get in my bed, and I don't want the street in my bed. That's what my mama taught me. You know, so you prepare, right? You prepare your people, you prepare your space in your house. You know, and I grew up in a very little teeny house in Sea Pleasant, Maryland. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to do a COVID Thanksgiving at that house because there just physically was not a lot of space for people to distance. You know, we would spill out onto the front porch and things like that. If I were still living in that house and we were in this pandemic, we would have Thanksgiving at my Aunt Nell's house instead. Why? Because our house is bigger and it has more space and we can spread out. And that's another family house. I just didn't grow up in a house that would have been conducive for a pandemic Thanksgiving dinner with multiple households. So you prepare your space, you know, and Dr. Knighton gave me a bunch of really great tips. I put my wipes right in the bathroom and I asked people, and I told them in advance, you're coming into a clean bathroom. Make sure that the people coming behind you are too. So I asked people to wipe down behind themselves and I made it easy for them. The bathroom was pristine when they got there and the wipies were there. There's an open trash bin. They wipe down, they throw their stuff in the trash. They can easily wash their hands. I got rid of those, you know, them towels that look good that you hang in the bathroom. You know, you go to grandma's house and they might be pink with some embroidered flowers on them. We take all those things out of the bathroom. Pandemic is not the time for those things. They just hold germs and people use them. They can dry their hands really good. Go to IKEA or one of those places, get you a little $1 or $2 or a Family Dollar, get you a little paper towel roll holder and put you a roll of paper towels in the bathroom and an open waste basket or one people can step on so people can dry their hands good when they're done and throw that stuff in the waste basket. With the food, I mean, I literally have not been so mindful of spray my whole life. We love a good buffet, right? We love a buffet. And we love to lay all the food out. Now the young kids want to take pictures of the food and make boomerangs with them and put it on TikTok. And I think it's funny, all the Thanksgiving pictures, because we all eating the same stuff, but you just think yours look better. But everybody likes to do that. And then they like to talk over the food. But if you notice, you watch people now, you see them spraying, and it's like that was cool pre-COVID. Going to a birthday party with some kid blowing out the candles, that was cool pre-COVID. That is not cool in COVID. That is not cool. That's the equivalent. If you are standing over the food in Thanksgiving, chopping it up, you might as well have a 2-year-old blowing out the Thanksgiving candles and just blowing all over the food. So you don't do that, right? How can you get around that? You have somebody serve the food. And that's not overly difficult. You have one person serve the food. And then when people go back, if people want to come back for seconds, you can just rotate, have shifts. You on the serving duty right now, you on serving duty after that, have that person wipe their hands. And again, my thing is it's not about being ruining everything and sucking all the fun out of holidays. It really is about keeping people safe. Do you know how grateful I am? Because after I got back from this wedding, I contracted COVID at this wedding. What do we still have left? A whole lot of Thanksgiving leftovers. I have a 3-month-old daughter and 3 kids. Now, the one child did get COVID, and 100% she got it from me because she hasn't been out of the house. But just us honoring those basic things in my house, I was able to protect the rest of the house. And only my oldest daughter contracted COVID, not my granddaughter, not my son, not my youngest daughter. And they're all young adults, 19, 22, 23. So, this does work. And we have joy in our house. We have joy. We just also have prevention and some protocols that we've now internalized and that work for us. I'm convinced the oldest one got it because she has a terrible habit of picking up my drink and taking a sip. And it serves her right for doing that. But all the rest of it works. All the rest of it works. And then the proactive follow-up, that's critical because since I knew I was the baddest chick on that dance floor when that Cupid Shuffle came on. I know I was. I was killing it. It's my dance. I was doing it, okay? Miss Jackson, if you nasty style doing it. I knew that I had been out. So on Monday, when I had a little itch in my throat, I said, hold up. It was like,
Mm,
mm. It was just minor. And then
mm,
on Tuesday, it was a little bit more, and I had a headache. I said, you was living your best life at that wedding. I
mm,
immediately put my
mm.
mask on, and I told everybody in my house, I've got these 2 weird symptoms. It could be a cold, it could be nothing, but I'm gonna stay masked up for at least the next 2 days, and I'm gonna go get tested because I don't wanna put any of you all in harm's way. And I said to my daughter, "You should keep the, that I'm gonna have to not be with the baby because obviously if I have COVID, I don't wanna give it to her." That was just being responsible. And
Yeah,
thank God I
yeah,
did that because
yeah.
honestly, I did not think I had COVID. I did not relate to a scratchy throat and a headache as COVID. I'm thinking taste, smell, fever, runny nose, all of that. But
Mhm,
because
mhm.
I knew I had had an, possible exposure just because I was out living my best life, I put that basic stuff in place and was able to protect the rest of my household. So just getting these things ingrained in you and starting to just practice them, if you do them, it's seamless and you can protect yourself and others.
Um,
Agree. I would
it- it-
I,
well, I want to go into to dive with you, Dr. Knight, but I saw what Dr. Furr-Holden did there. First, she told us she was just out there having fun, and she switched up on and said she was actually Janet Jackson out there on the thing. She was tearing it up. Uh, Dr. Furr-Holden, if you're nasty, right? Dr. Knighton, talk to us about diet.
So really quick, Riv, before we go into diet, with the mask and people just being at home in gatherings, I recommend that individuals get a box of disposable masks for their homes. And I would actually suggest to people to give people a fresh mask because the education around mask is not equitable, meaning that you might have cousin Pee Wee that come over and the mask that he has on his face is contaminated, which means that if somebody accidentally touch it, pick it up, they're going to automatically come in contact with its germs. You also see people that wear those gator masks, which we know the gator masks are not a good form of protection whatsoever and are not recommended either by the CDC. It's not recommended by WHO. It's not recommended by me, simply because you have to take those germs off and over your head, as well as the fabric itself is very thin, so it's not really protecting against nothing. So if someone's coming to your house, you want to make sure that you keep them with everybody is fair and equitable, meaning like everybody has the same layer of protection by them having, let's say, a disposable mask. I would also say too, I got this box here and I keep this box as an example, but on the side of the box, they actually have on here how long you should use the mask. So some of the disposable masks might have, let's say, 8 hours on there, some of them 4 hours. If you wear the mask beyond the time frame that they tell you to wear it, you're increasing your risk of getting sick. This particular mask manufacturer says that it needs to be replaced with a new mask after 4 hours.
Wow.
And so I just want to bring that up. And the other
Okay.
piece that adding on to what Dr. Deb said about the cups, about dinner, Rev, is going to be the cups. Do not take a cup from a stackable cup. If you are the host, make sure that you are setting the cups out individually and make sure that they are face down. So if someone is talking over the cups, you don't have to worry about the droplets being directly in the cup that they'll pick up. And if the cups are facing down and they're stacked up, everybody's fingers, when they lift the cup up, is touching the rim. You're touching the rim of your cup before you even drink from it. So
Right.
those
Right.
were just the two little add-ons that I have from the amazing information that Dr. Deb shared.
Okay. Okay. Um, but what about the diet too? Do you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I will tell anyone is that everything that we're sharing with you all are risk lowering measures, meaning what can I do that's going to decrease my risk of getting sick? I'm talking about getting sick from a cold, getting sick from flu, getting sick from some sort of, whether it's a temporary virus or not, right? And COVID. it is important that you think about your diet. If you are stressed out because of the holiday season, it's not a good time for you to partake in sweets. Many people don't know this, but for every 75 milligrams of sugar per day, you lower your immune system for 5 hours. So you can go to the gym, you can work out really, really hard. You can say, oh, well, I'm going to make sure that I eat a balanced diet. To put that in perspective, that's a Pop-Tart and a can of pop that you didn't even have like at the same time frame throughout the day, but that's 75 milligrams of sugar that has now lowered your immune system. So I encourage people, I know that there's cakes and pies and all kinds of things around the holiday season. I challenge you to think about what your relationship is with sugar. And if you are going through stress or eating a lot of sugar, how do I cut back on that? There's a slew of science that shows how sugar lowers the immune system and increases the risk of an infection. And so if you were to come into contact with someone that has COVID, at least you know just by you decreasing your sugar intake, making sure that you have a diet that's being more fortified with, let's say, foods that contain vitamin C and, making sure that you're getting vitamin D. If you do those things and make sure that you're not taking in food additives, things that are going to lower your immune system, then you are in a good position. And alcohol does it. So alcohol is sugar, and many of us don't want to acknowledge that. But if you are sick, it's not the time to be putting anything sweet in your body. And I know this goes against the rule because a lot of people talk about ginger ale, but ginger ale, a lot of them have high fructose corn syrup in it. So while you thinking that it's helping you to make it better, the sugar and the high fructose corn syrup in that ginger ale is going to lower your immune system. So I always encourage people to make sure that we are thinking about our relationship with sugar when it comes to diet. And also we know a study came out, and this was very early on in the pandemic, maybe we were 3 to 4 months into the pandemic, and they were trying to figure out the profile of an individual that didn't get COVID at all, or the ones that were asymptomatic with no symptoms. And when they looked at it, they found a correlation of T cells. If you look up what foods can help my T cells and what foods can hurt my T cells, the additives, everything that I'm describing, the chemicals you'll find on that list. If you're looking for something of how to help your T cells, you'll see the fruits, the vegetables, you'll see ginger, you'll see the citrus on there when we're talking about lemons. And so that's actually one of the things that I do even on a regular basis, and that's making sure that I'm juicing lemon and ginger together and incorporating that into my diet and even my kids and my husband's diet too.
Yeah. Very important. Very important. Not a lot of time left. Quickly, Christmas are going to be toys, children sharing toys, games. What's your best advice on that? Best practices?
I would suggest, for one, think about how you're cleaning the toys. So think about how you're cleaning the toys. How are they being used? If you know that you have a baby that's going to slobber all over toys, but you have the kid that's, let's say, the 3 or 4-year-old that may not be a sibling, may be a sibling, they're actually touching that item with their hands. Think about that relationship between kids and what they're doing with those items. Also think about your interaction with that item as an adult that may or may not be practicing hand hygiene, and the possibility that you could be passing germs to that baby to then put that they're going to put that toy in their mouth. And what does that do? Are you putting that kid at risk of giving them direct germs by not paying attention to that? I also tell individuals that when you are cleaning the products, or let's say the toys, remember disinfectants are okay to use. However, you must wipe them off of that toy if that kid is going to put it inside of their mouth, because you don't want that baby being exposed to any or kid being exposed to any chemicals. When there are video games, you have cousins that are going to play video games. It's essential that we're making sure that if they are going to be playing video games, are they taking time outs to make sure that they're cleaning their hands? Meaning maybe that's, people cleaning their hands before they grab the joystick, if all of them have to share. If they're playing board games over the table, you can do timeouts and make sure that you're cleaning your hands, once an hour. You can make sure that you're also wiping down the table. I don't know about y'all, but we play cards in my house and we screaming and we loud. And so it's a lot of droplets that can potentially fall on the table. We say, hold on, hold that thought, and we'll make sure that we wipe them down. Now, Rev, I know we about to go, but I would be remiss if I did not mention that because we are in the holiday season, a lot of us are also losing people that are around us to COVID, which means that we are at funerals and we are at church and we're at a lot of places. Our eyes, our nose, and our mouth produces drainage. Those tears that come from somebody's eyes that you're trying to wipe away or trying to soothe, and you giving them a tissue and then you holding hands and stuff like that and y'all wiping away tears, you can trans COVID to yourself through your eye cavity. So I just want to make sure that we're aware of that you can be sitting there boo-hooing and y'all holding hands and touching, and you go to wipe your eye again, you didn't get yourself COVID, even with your mask on, okay? And also it's important that if you at a funeral or at a service, always have a backup plan with the mask to make sure that you can switch that out. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm an ugly crier. And then might have snot sometimes that's running down. You don't want all of that inside of that mask. So make sure that you have more than one mask when you're putting yourself in those situations, and make sure that you're cleaning hands, because we know inside of, our praise and worship environments, we're holding hands, we're crying, but we have to be conscious about the drainage, because not everybody can protect themselves and not everybody's going to clean their hands. And we have to assume that even though we want to love each other, we got to do it safely.
Yeah. Wow. This is great. Some great advice. Just before we go, we're going to get out in just a second. Dr. Debra Furr-Holden, how serious, how dangerous is this Omicron variant?
That is a to be determined. We are still doing the work and looking to see. The work that's afoot right now, we take the Omicron strain, we throw it in a petri dish, we put in the antibodies of people who've had COVID and recovered, and we see how well it does at neutralizing it. We're doing that work. We're now having cases that we've identified as Omicron. We're monitoring those cases to see how severe they are, whether or not they're vaccinated or unvaccinated. So that remains to be seen. But I want people to be clear. All viruses mutate. This is nothing new. This ain't no super virus. There's nothing special about this, strain of coronavirus. All viruses do this. It's behaving exactly how we would expect. It's just how tricky these variants are, how much illness they cause, how they are at evading or sort of undermining the effectiveness of the vaccine. That remains to be seen.
Yeah. Folks, I hope you all.
But the basics work. I'm sorry, my bad. The basics still work. So if the vaccine don't stop Omicron, your mask, hand washing, practicing physical distancing, and avoiding those large crowds will work. Those things work regardless.
Bottom line is, folks, we can't let up. Don't get too comfortable. Don't relax. Don't be doing the Cupid shuffle.
Don't do it. Do it in your living room with your household.
I'm absolving you of your sin. And whatnot. And don't be all loud playing cards either, like they do at Dr. Knighton's house. Y'all be careful out there. We've all been blessed. I hope you all have been blessed. This has been tremendous and has been very helpful. Share this video. It's going to live on Facebook. Share it with other family and friends, loved ones, so they can get some good tips and remain conscious about all of this. Dr. Debra Furr-Holden and Dr. Shanina Knighton, thank you both. Have the happiest of holiday seasons and a happy Kwanzaa and a happy New Year, okay? Thank you all. Folks, this has been Mass for the People. We'll be back with you in the new year. Pastor Mike will be back here. Love you all. God bless you.
Praise the Lord, y'all. Is anybody standing on the promises of God? I know things look a little dark right now, but we're standing on the promises. Everything God has said is got to come to pass. Come on, y'all. Are you standing on his promises this morning? Say. Here we go, choir. Says they never fought. It says some said it was all over for me. They couldn't see what God was doing for me, y'all. Hey, but all they needed to know was lie, neither is he the Son of Man that he should repent. If he said it's gonna happen, it's still got to come to pass. I don't care what COVID is saying, it's gotta come to pass. Why? Because his promise. It says I'm a winner. If you're a winner, I need you to clap your hands wherever you are and say, I'm gonna be victorious, y'all. And this is why I shall win. Hey, if you're a winner, let me hear you say I'm above. Let's go. And I've got the devil. Hey, and I've got the devil. If he's really under your feet, I need you to say, this is your moment to put him back where he belongs. Come on, let's take it up and say, I've got the devil. For every single lie he's ever told you, say, come on, take me up and say, I'm standing. I trust every word God has ever spoken. Come on, take me up again and say it. I believe it, I receive it, and I declare it. Come on, can we take it up again and say, he promised. Come on, Cassie. And what about all your needs? He's never gonna leave you alone. He'll always be right by your side. Say, and what about when you're crying at night? Say, and this is why, because I'm standing.
Thank you, Jesus. Standing on. I'm standing on the promises of God.
Come on, say it with us. Say standing. Hey, wherever you are, I hope you get off your couch. I hope you get off your couch. I hope you get out of your favorite chair. And I hope you dance with us a little bit. Come on, God, let us see you dance. Come on. Y'all gonna do this little part with us? We just gonna talk about the promises of God, how they are yea and amen. If he's spoken, he's gotta bring it to pass. His word cannot return void. Come on, y'all. Sing, he promised. That'll never leave me or forsake. He said he promised. That he'll be with me always. Said he promised. That his love would cover me. I said he promised. That his mercy endured forever. Said he promised. He promised. He promised.